Hey, chatters, doing something a little bit different than we usually do today. I'm joined by my guest today, Mike, who's from Agent.AI, which is a platform for helping you incorporate agents into your workflow, developed on the side by HubSpot, which is nice because if you use HubSpot, it hooks up to everything in HubSpot. Today, I'm going to have him introduce himself. We're going to walk through the platform a little bit, and then we'll just live build. We'll just vibe automate something so we can see what our options are, how it all works, and how you can potentially use this. It is free to use. Obviously, to some extent, you got to pay for your API calls, I assume, and there's a credit system. But in terms of just getting access to it and messing around, it's pretty straightforward. So I'll kick it over to you, Mike. Welcome. Let us know a little bit about yourself and Agent AI.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have a fun time with you today and hopefully share some cool stuff with your gentle listeners out there. So yeah, I work at Agent AI. I run operations there. And Agent AI, as you said, is an innovation lab of HubSpot. It's a loose association, right? And we work across all sorts of different platforms that businesses might use, whether it be Salesforce, HubSpot, Monday.com, or others. And we are indeed totally free. So part of our ethos and the way that we view the AI ecosystem is that, man, there's a lot of tools out there. They all have kind of their hand outstretched for your credit card. Wouldn't it be easier if you could just cut through some of that and get to the building? And so we, out of the box, have a lot of tools and endpoints and models that you can use for free. And there's no credit card. You just sign up with your email and off you go. We've been around for about a year. We have a couple million users, a couple thousand agents that are public that you can go check out on the marketplace, and some very large multiple of that number of agents that are private, which means they're just used by the folks that built them or for internal purposes. So it's exciting. It's going well. We're having a lot of fun carving out a unique place in the ecosystem.
Cool. And you said public. If we look at the screen up here, I assume these featured agents, the marketplace, this is just folks who have just built something that anyone can more or less copy and paste, and it just hooks up to whatever they're connected to.
Totally. Yeah. Like these agents are designed for public consumption, right? So they're designed for you to go tool around with and see if there's something you like. On the front page, you see a hodgepodge selection of things that you may or may not find interesting. And then you can search for stuff, search for whatever it is that you're interested in. So there are agents, that some of them are related to marketing, like this first one here we see, this ICP builder. Some are related to certain software ecosystems, like this one's related to HubSpot. And some of them are just, I guess, general utilities. Like I'd highlight this one. It's a video script generator. You give it a little bit of information on what you want, the length of video, platform it's going to go on, and it generates a script for you. Do you want a 30-second short or a 5-minute YouTube video or whatever? And then some are completely, we call them lifestyle. You can call it whatever you want, like the meme maker or the loading message generator, just for fun. Yeah. There's one that even teaches you how to play the ukulele in 20 simple steps, a personal favorite.
Yeah, you gonna whip out your ukulele for us now? Maybe end us on a little tune.
Sadly, it's in another room, but yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so do you mind just clicking on one of these just so we can see where it leads us and how you'd actually use it?
Yeah, let's go take a look. Anyone tickle your fancy?
Let's have fun. Let's do the meme maker. I noticed that one's
Yeah,
created by Dharmesh. I assume that's CTO of HubSpot, throwing some of these together.
Yeah. This was one of our actually very first agents on here, just because it was a stunningly obvious thing that ought to have been done. So here, let's make one. Let's make a meme about a podcast with two people talking about AI. And while this is generating, a lot of agents on Agents AI end up working this way, where they're basically form driven in the browser. And you input something, the prompts are embedded by the person that built it. In this case, it's Dharmesh. And then the output often lives in the browser. It's just a self-contained unit in the browser. Lots of capabilities like send emails and do other stuff, but in its simplest form, we see a lot of agents are like this and often start like this. This one's very straightforward, pretty fast.
Yeah, that was actually really fast. I think I saw, are you guys using Flux, or what are you using for your image modeling in here?
We've got basically all the models. We've had Flux and a diagram and stuff like that. We have Nano Banana in there now. So like basically whatever the mass market public models are, you'll find incorporated in here. I'm not sure what this one is made with.
Yeah, whatever he said it to.
Yeah, but you have a lot of options in terms of models if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think what we'll see is you have a really robust tool set of not just image and text generation, but like all the other sort of modalities you can think of as well. So very cool. That's our public one. Why don't you show us a little bit about like how do we connect up to things, and if we're looking to build our automation or workflow?
Yeah, sure. So I think the best way to show off that stuff is just to head into the agent builder. So most of the homepage is designed for users, people who want to just use stuff. And that might be you want to use and build. Great. But the actual agent builder is tucked in here in the top nav. And so when you go in there, you'll see a list, like a lot of these kind of tools where you see all the agents you've made. A lot of mine are half finished,
Yeah, yeah.
untitled, all 15 pages of them. I'm sure many of you listening are in the same boat. So I'll just create a new agent. And we've got a couple of different types. The standard agent in Agent.AI is what I would call workflow driven. So get some input, do something, have some output. It runs linearly, right? So it's not like a custom GPT or something where there's a loop. The expert agents have that kind of looping chat interaction capability. The workflow agents, I think, are a great place to get started with Agent.AI because they're a lot more deterministic. And you can, in a business setting, I think, better tune and know what you're going to get out of them. Whereas the expert agent, if you use custom GPTs or something, they're good for training or creating synthetic audiences or something, but often they're not quite as, I don't know, straightforward in terms of their use. So I'll create a new agent, launched it to the builders, test agent for today.
What, not untitled
And
number 57?
okay, I think 57 is a modest number. And when I start, it's blank canvas, right? I'm going to open up the action library, which is where all the tools are, which is what we're talking about here. And you can see there's a couple different categories of tools. There's ways to get inputs from like humans, like you and me. There's places to retrieve data from other systems, like YouTube or a web page or search like Google. There are ways to retrieve data and context from social media. And a lot of folks use this for go-to-market or enrichment or lead research type purposes. Yeah, I just got someone to fill out a form on my site. Who the heck are they? So let's find out some more about them on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatnot. And then there's other actions around these can be on the input or the output side around HubSpot or CRM. We have a bunch of hooks into HubSpot, given our special relationship there. And for those of you who are into more sophisticated stuff, there are just ways to create serverless functions in here in Python or Node. And then you can just invoke any REST API like through the UI here. So these are the ways that people tend to get a little more exotic.
Yeah.
But I
So
think
if you don't find
we
the
see a lot of
tool
stuff.
you need here,
Yeah,
you have the two tools that can just hook up to anything, more or less.
just do whatever. Yeah. And if you're like me and your skill set with this stuff is only so, you're probably going to vibe code your little serverless function code in Claude or something and then plop it in here.
Yeah.
Right?
Like a little code node that maybe organizes the data or parses it or whatever it might be.
Exactly. But we see people do really creative stuff with this. I will say, though, that you definitely do not need to write, read, care about code to build something really, I think, terrific in Agent.AI. In our marketplace, the most popular agents are often the simplest ones, like the meme generator one we just used. I think that thing has like millions of runs. It's wildly popular, right? And there's no code involved. It's probably a 3 or 4 step agent that just does a little
Yeah.
thing. The real value add is in the creativity, the imagination of the builder, not in the sophistication of the code they wrote to make happen. Yeah. So lots of actions in here. And then the way we typically see agents come together is in, I don't know, 3 steps. Chunk one is about getting inputs and context. And so folks will often get some input from a user and maybe go scrape a couple web pages, gather what they need from a human and non-human sources. That's step one. Then step two will be a little bit of logic. Maybe it's an if statement. That's a deterministic old school computer programming way to do things. And then there's a couple of prompts maybe, and you might mix and match your models. In Agent.AI, that is a really delightful and easy thing to do, mixing and matching your models. So when you go to make an LLM call, like I said before, it's totally free. One of our strong beliefs is that you should be able to move through the ecosystem quickly without having to trip over all these paywires and stuff. And in here, you'll see you have access to pretty much all of the models that are out there nowadays. So you have access to all the different flavors of GPT-5. We have GPT-4 around for those of you who miss it. The thinking models from OpenAI, all your friends from Anthropic, Google, if you need bigger context windows, you'll see here's Flash as well, and then Perplexity, and there's some more esoteric stuff down here, like
Yeah.
Llama or DeepSeek if you want to get
Open
weird.
models.
And yeah, we'll obviously people get their inputs and then pass it through some like logic or transformation. It's like old school. And then there's a couple of prompts. The first prompt might be summarize this. The second prompt might be take this content and write HTML to beautify it for when I output it. And then the last step tends to be showing the user what you've made because it just sits in agent memory. And if you want to actually show it to a person, you can show it on the screen. You can send it an email, push it to a Google Doc, do whatever with it.
Very cool. Yeah. And I noticed there's a couple think a couple things you can connect to outright, obviously your HubSpot, but your Gmail, maybe some social media stuff. It's pretty easy, at least it seems, to just be like, okay, I have this account already set up and you're going to use this account to do the things I want you to do.
Yeah. We have good integrations with Google Docs and Sheets, Google Gmail, and eventually Calendar, which is particularly tricky to integrate in, are coming. We do see people wire up interesting things by sending themselves emails and basically using
Some
Gmail
other
as a
automation.
bus for, to forward and tag and filter and stuff. Yeah. Should we build something?
Yeah, let's build something. So we're going to have some sort of trigger which sets this off, our actions, and then our final output. So what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What should we build?
Something I like to build is basically to take an asset on your website. Could be a webinar, could be a case study. If you're a business that's been in business for a while, you're probably making content for a while, right? Could be a blog post. And basically taking that content and agentifying it, if you will, and basically creating an agent that allows the visitor or the consumer of that content to interact with that content in the way they want. And so I'll say it in my perspective. I love doing podcasts. And this is such a gnarly thing to say. I don't like listening to podcasts. Like they take too long. I'm not entertained by them as much as I maybe should be. And so when I interact with the podcast, I prefer to do it in this way. I want to ask it a question. I want to know what's the value prop? What's the answer? Summarize it for me. Tell me the highlights. I don't want to listen to the fly. So I suggest let's make an agent that takes in some kind of YouTube asset and does that exact thing. Cool. Do you have a favorite webinar or YouTube video we could use for this?
Yeah, might as well go grab one. Give me a second here.
Yeah, cool. While you do that, I'll get going on the agent itself. So gentle viewers, the way we want to start here is by thinking about like inputs and then data retrieval. And the YouTube link that we're going to get in a second is going to be the data piece. We need to start by just getting some input from our humans too. So the person that we're getting the input from is like a website visitor, someone that came to your site or someone that came to your YouTube video. They're a prospect, let's say, not yet a customer of whatever it is you're selling. So the first thing we're going to do is get some input from them. And that input is going to be just some text. And we want to hear from them what it is they want to learn from this YouTube video. So let's just ask them, what do you want to learn from the video? And here we can give some examples, like top 3 highlights, the funny bits, or controversial elements. We can give a default value, which is just another way to help our user navigate this little bit of input. And then we store whatever they said in this user input variable. Variables in Agent.AI are pretty core and they're just like a central feature of how this thing operates. Whatever we get from the user in their response to this question, we're going to store in this variable. So they could input a couple words like I have in the examples, or they can give us a paragraph. Whatever they give us is stored as the value of this user input variable.
Yep.
So I'm going to hit add, and that slots itself into the agent builder. So now this agent has one step, and you can actually see it on the right-hand side. What do you want to learn from the video? It's not going to have much to it because there's no brains of this thing. There's no prompt. There's nothing in there yet, but we can see it beginning to take form. And then the second thing we're going to do is then go actually retrieve the content of that video. I'm going to go use one of the YouTube capabilities here and fetch a YouTube transcript. And maybe you can send over the...
Yeah, sent it in the chat here if you can find it.
I can find it. All right.
And we'll see if this doesn't work.
All right. So here, I got it. It's right here. I got my video. Yep. Looks awesome.
Yeah, I figure if you're trying to think about what AI model to use, well, let's do it right here.
I love it. And so this is about 11 and a half minutes. Like the transcript is, chunky. What this action is going to do is go out to a URL that we give it. And in this case, I'm going to hard code the URL by just pasting it in here. And what this action in this agent is going to do is go out. It uses a third-party service you can rely on, goes out to YouTube, pulls in the transcript, and it will store the entirety of the transcript of this lovely video in this other variable transcription.
And just before you add that, you could, if you wanted, we have that insert variable up there. If in the previous step as part of the user input, we put input YouTube URL, then we can make it so it takes that dynamic value.
Yeah. Why don't we live a little and do it? It won't take long. Let's add another action here. Let's add a user input. Wow. And let's get another user input. This time it's going to be a URL. And so what is the URL of the YouTube video?
And I assume you do an input type because let's say that person does not input the URL correctly, then it'll throw an error, I assume, being like, sorry, this is
Correct.
not a URL.
Totally. What we're really doing here, folks, is we're just building a form. If you've ever built a form in Google Form or Typeform, we're just doing that. And so, yes, there are input types, and then each kind of element of that form is getting placed into a variable. Let's call this YouTube. And I'm going to use some of these default kind of values and examples to make it so that video we just looked at, stop guessing which AI model, is going to show up off the bat. All right, so let's add that in. Now this agent has 2 steps, right? So it's got, what do you want to learn from the video? And what's the URL? We're going to ask the user both of those questions. I'm going to add another action, which is the YouTube transcript, and then talk through how this works. For the URL that it's going to go scrape, I'm going to click on insert variable, and I can pull from the variables I've already used, as well as some kind of system variables. So agents and Agent.AI have some awareness, I guess, of their place in the world. And so they know the user's first name, their last name, their LinkedIn profile, stuff like that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second too, the importance of the term that's arisen, context engineering, right? Like you want to make sure that agent has some information about you, about what you're trying to do, maybe what today is, right? Whatever knowledge it needs to more accurately output something. And so it seems like you've built that in from the foundation of here are, no matter what, some variables you can add in here or have, so you don't even have to think about it.
That's right. Yeah. And we're always like adding bits more in here. This, I think, is a pretty light, frankly, set of context variables about the user. But when you think about the way Agent.AI works, we have millions of people using these agents. Like for them to complete their profile and add in their name and city and country, that's a big lift. And so we're very careful about what we ask for users to make it an easy, fast to use thing. But we can take the date and time from the user, the agent ID, and sometimes these are useful as you're trying to string multiple agents together, which we can talk about a bit. All right, so I'm going to plop in the YouTube URL variable here. So when I do so, you see it's in this double bracket notation for the nerds in the room, handlebars, right? When this agent actually runs, what's going to happen? It will substitute the value of this variable into here, and it will have like https://youtube.com/variables. And then it will pull the transcript of that and place the transcript in transcription. So you're starting to see how variables can do a lot. In Agent.AI, it's like a little game of Mad Libs, right? You can plop these variables in and then they get substituted at runtime. So we're going to add in this one. Now we've got 3 steps here. So 2 inputs from our user. What do you want to learn? What's the link? And then this to actually go grab the YouTube video. So at this point, we have the context and the inputs we need from our human sources in step 1 and 2, and our non-human sources in step 3. So now it's time to actually do our processing, if you will, which in this case is going to be an LLM. So I'm going to add another action in. I'm going to go to AI and content generation. And like we were saying before, you can do a bunch of stuff in terms of AI on Agent.AI. You can generate images, do some kind of video processing, audio, whatever. In this case, I'm going to generate content, just use a sort of straight ahead LLM. By default, we tend to recommend GPT-5 Mini. It's just nowadays it's a decent compromise of speed and capability to pick your own model. And money. Yep. Some of these are definitely way more capable. I think right tool for the job, though. In this case, we're going to take a transcript, we're going to take a question, and we're just going to ask it to extract. It's actually, you could probably just use Nano. Yeah, it's a pretty simple kind of thing. And by the way, if you didn't follow or maybe don't care about that last little exchange we had, my favorite feature of Agent.AI is the auto optimized option here, which is like, just pick the model that's right for me. We take your prompt, we profile it, we pick the right models for you. It's what AI has been doing for now, a month or 2? Yeah. We've been doing it for a while.
And not very well, considering.
Considering the feedback on the internet, not very well. So anyway, now in this instruction set thing, this is where we place our prompt. When in Agent.AI, another little technical note for those of you who care to know, when we are working with these models, we are calling basically via API these models. It's like Open Router, but more free and a few less models in there. And so when you do that, the data you put into this instruction set, the guarantee from the frontier models from OpenAI and Anthropic is that they will not train their models on the data you give, because this is all via API. Up to you whether you want to believe that or not. What that means is you get maybe a little bit more, feeling of security than you would just using like chatgpt.com or Cloud.ai. So we're going to write our prompt here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my prompt. And then I mentioned Mad Libs before. And if you're our age, You maybe know what that is. If you're not, then I'm going to teach you. It's a game where we would substitute kind of bits of text in to complete sentences, sometimes in funny ways. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to insert our variables to complete this prompt. So I'm saying, look, from the video transcript below, answer the following question. And I'm going to place the variable of the question we got from our user in here. So when this runs, it will actually substitute text, Mabload style. And the question we asked is, what do you want to work with the video? And so the user input variable will have some value, summarize the finding. And the transcript, now we're going to plop in that transcription variable from before. This is going to be a pretty material amount of text, and it's basically just going to append it as a long kind of string here in the prompt. So when this actually runs, it's going to be a lot longer than our little 2-line thing, but in 2 lines, we can keep it in our human heads and understand it pretty nicely. There's some other features here we're not going to use on this particular agent, like we can attach files as you would in a ChatGPT kind of use case. And
although let's take a little bit of a detour here. I'm seeing this uploaded to knowledge base. So, and earlier I saw some vector variables. So I'm going to assume that, you can upload files in Agent.AI, it'll vectorize it. And then if you want, you can give agents access to that data.
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah. And so that's a good way. If you have with this transcript, I'm not sure how many characters it's going to end up being, a bunch, but not a ton. But imagine you have a PhD thesis or a few volumes of a series of books or something,
or just market research or something
Yeah. And it's going to be a lot of content. You could try to just jam it into the prompt. And honestly, that would probably work. Context windows are pretty big nowadays, whatever. But it might be faster to use the knowledge base feature to pre-vectorize it, just so that it's faster for the LLM to actually chew through. Yes, that's the way I tend to use this type of feature. All right. Now we're going to just give an output variable for wherever we get back from the LLM. So here's our prompt. We got our variables, like we talked about at runtime. This will fan a little bit and there'll be more content in here. And then the output variable name, whatever, it doesn't really matter what it is, LLM. All right, I'm going to add this in. And then there's one last step we need to do that often when people build their first agent, they actually miss. So careful viewers, pay attention. Yeah, this is a pro tip indeed. We have the first kind of chunk here is getting the input and the context. The second chunk is our processing, if you will. And then the last piece is the output. And so the output, if you don't include one of these, the agent does the work, but it doesn't show its work.
It doesn't
kind of
go
like
anywhere.
In third grade math. Yeah, and it'll just run, it'll do the thing, but you as the person will never see it. And so you can send your output as an email, right? You can save it to a Google Doc or do some file manipulation. The simplest way to do it, especially as you're testing this stuff, is just show the output on the screen. So I'm going to show the user the output. I'm going to insert the variable again. I'm going to insert this LLM out variable. Oops, didn't work.
Good to know, though, that it's not just you have to do insert variable. You can just do the handlebars and populate that way.
Like any good platform, we shouldn't need to use the mouse that much. All right. And then the format, I'm going to leave as auto. We might want to come back to this in a moment. There's other options. If your output is in HTML format or Markdown or something, you can basically force it to format in that way, which will just be a kind of faster way for it to show the right stuff. So I'm going to add that in. All right. So now I'm going to restart this agent so it catches up with all the things that we've done. And looky here, we've got our 2 questions. So step 1 and step 2. What do you want to learn from the video? Get the top 3 highlights, and here's the video. And like we said, it validates the structure of this thing. It's looking for a link, and it's even gone out, confirmed that this is indeed that.
That's nice.
So I'm going to hit go. And now, because we just built this together, you know what this is doing, right? Behind the scenes, it's running these steps. It's saying, all right, I'm going to go get the YouTube transcript. Then I'm going to make this call to GPT-5 Nano with the prompt that we wrote, and then show the user output. You can actually look under the hood with this little details toggle, and you can see how long everything took and where it spent time. This here is our response. So it gave us a bit back here. I'm going to shut this off so it's a little easier to see. Thinking of response thinking models and how to pair them. It gave us model size and trade-offs. It gave us ChatGPT and Gemini. So it gave us a couple of highlights from the video. But honestly, my main observation is this is really hard to read.
Yeah.
It's just text and it's just not formatted.
A single string, yeah.
But it worked, right? Our agent is in fact alive. And this is often the iterative process. I think the joy of developing these things. Now we get to go back and we get to tune it. We get to improve it. And I think the best way to do so would be to go back to our prompt so that when we get back our response from the LLM, it's prettier. And I might even go so far as to tell it to make it prettier. So output your response in HTML in elegant, pretty, minimal HTML. This is a totally gross way to prompt, but let's see how it works.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to make it look a little better. And then our output, it'll probably figure it out, but I'm going to just flip the output format to HTML and I'm going to restart it again and we're going to run it again. Let's just get the funny bits this time. And we know in the background, we click on details and kind of see what it's up to. It already got the transcript. That took 1.7 seconds. We can see the whole body of the transcript in the JSON response if you're into that. And here, this is the content that's getting smashed into that prompt when it runs. And all right, let's go back and let's see what we got. We got something that's a little bit better. At least this time it's in bullets, right? Like it's got a header. Part of this process, I think, is where the fun is. And I think it's a race to get version 1 of your agent and get the honestly crappiest possible thing that you're like radically embarrassed by, and then start making it better. Because once it actually works, then it's fun and you can go back and forth and improve the thing. And I think that's where a lot of the artistry and joy comes from.
Yeah, I'm teaching an automation course right now, and I keep telling people, like, just start so simple as you can, and then test, iterate, add complexity, because the joy is when you first get it to work, then you're like, oh, dopamine rush, that was awesome. But what if it did this? And then you keep adding and iterating to it.
Yeah. And sometimes you get little happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say, right? Like our prompt was like, course simple, here. I'll put your response in elegant HTML. But actually, some of this, like I think there's a few too many fonts on the page, so maybe I want to go back and change that. But like this, like little highlighty thing it did, and I don't know, like some of this is making me happy.
Some of the transcription definitely chat GBT.
Yeah, it got half of it, maybe not the other half. But yeah.
But to that point, right? It's like you can now we've seen that it's also like the transcript is not so great. So then how do we add to the prompt? This is typically what it's going to be looking for. If instances of this, it really means this. You just keep iterating until you get it right.
Yeah. And the way I would handle that and often do in these types of applications is you actually add another action and another LLM call as a preprocessor step. Take this transcript and clean it up. Change whatever chat GPT to stuff like that, right? And then we let it output like a clean transcript, right? I put that step right before content generation.
Yeah.
So at the point where you have your agent in a state that you're okay with, let's imagine we got there here. For the Agent.AI fun is that you can share these agents. And so if you publish your changes, you can then go look at the public version of the thing, which will look a little different and a little simpler. It's got a cutesy little icon. It's asking the same questions, but just it's got a beautified layer here as opposed to the kind of development interface we just saw. If I click the big go button, it's going to do something similar to what it did before. But again, just much simpler. It's got a bigger canvas to work on. The viewport's going to be larger. It's just going to do a better job as a sort of user experience. The other thing with agents is that they live at URLs. So these URLs are by default publicly accessible, but not listed on the Agent.AI marketplace. And so you can tweak that and you can change the kind of privacy settings of an agent. If we go into the settings of this agent, there's a whole bunch of different options on ways to dress it up. We can give it a better title, a description, a username. So like test agent September, and it'll actually give it a unique human readable URL. Right? So this is great. And you claim that URL and share it around as you like. You can put a video demo of your agent, which is you talking about it and selling it to your potential users. You can change the icon around. We have icon sets. You can use your own, tag it, whatever. And down here, you can change the accessibility. So is it available to anyone with the link, which is a great way if you want to have a page in your internal Notion or your internal kind of documentation, but you don't want to be publicly listed. That's great. Private to only yourself, specific users, or public. If you make it public, it'll go through a kind of approval process by our team and it needs to conform to some standards. The other thing you can do is make your agent open source, right? So you can click this little box and allow other people to view the agent's actions. And that'll add a button on the publicly visible page where people can see the steps. They can't edit it, but they can see it and they can see your prompt. And it's just a very kind of, kind way to treat the community if you're building stuff for them. So if we go back, this thing finished running, and now you can see it's a prettier experience, right?
Yeah.
And you can also see it in a sort of final user form. And so maybe there's things you want to tweak. Maybe you want to change this header or, whatnot. at the bottom of every agent run is a review modal. And so part of, I think, the benefit of publishing on Agent.AI is you get real people using these things, and then you get these reviews and they send you real reviews. And I'm all for evals, right? Like, I think you should think about what the AI is doing and check it out. But far better than evals are, I think, marketplace
Oh,
reviews.
100%. It's hard individually creating something like this to understand all the edge cases or where things will go wrong. So you always need people who just do something you weren't expecting and then it doesn't do what it was supposed to do. And then, okay, back to the editing board.
100%. And we see people like get pretty creative with how they drive traffic to their agents. Sometimes they'll include them in a blog post that has its own distribution. They'll toss them on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. They will sometimes direct paid traffic to like this URL, or they'll even take the agent and embed it on a web page and then drive traffic there. So it's all sorts of interesting ways to, I don't know, I guess the term would be merchandise your agent once it actually exists.
Cool. Now we have our working automation. Are there any other sort of like features you want to throw in here that we haven't talked about, or functionality that would be useful to folks?
I'll show off an agent or two that I built in the past that have just some different, I don't know, capabilities. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So here's one that I built for a conference a week or two ago. And what this agent does is it takes your LinkedIn profile, and based off of your LinkedIn profile, it generates a postcard of you at the conference. This conference took place in San Francisco. Let's use my LinkedIn, just not to pick on anybody. And you can give it a caption. So greetings from the conference was inbound, and you hit go. And this is using image generation in the background. It also has a number of like helper prompts and sub agents that kind of combined to its run. And we'll take a look at how it works in a second. In the background, what it's doing is it's going out to LinkedIn. It's grabbing my profile picture. It's grabbing my work history. It's processing those in a way to describe my likeness, and then invent a couple of like tools or little objects that I might use at work. It gave me a very unbuttoned shirt, which is not how my LinkedIn profile works, but we can't win them all. It gave me a whiteboard here as my tool of choice. If you work in a non-computer environment, I've seen it give just like more interesting types of things. And the conference was in San Francisco, so it'll put me, I guess, on a hill above the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah.
Very cool.
And then this postcard, this is an image, you can do whatever you want with it, but I actually hooked it up to an API that allows you to send a real postcard. And it shows up in 5 to 7 business days or whatever. So the way this agent actually works under the hood, it's got a lot more to it than the one we just took a look at.
Oh, yeah. A lot more steps that are like 4 steps we had.
Yeah. And it's just, if you look at the thing, it just looks more complicated, right? Yeah. But let's try to break it down into chunks. It's got a couple of inputs. It then goes and gets some content from elsewhere. So the first 3 steps of this are very similar to the test agent that we just built a moment ago. They're just asking humans for stuff, and they're asking, in this case, LinkedIn for some stuff. And so like it's gathering its content that it needs. It has a sub agent that it calls, that it passes the image from your LinkedIn profile to. And this sub agent gives you back what's called a person description. So it describes me. It says, Mike looked this way, he has a beard, his hair looks like this, whatnot.
And so that sub agent is like its own little workflow that you're calling in? Or is it still?
It's a whole second agent on Agent.AI. And this is a good way to, if you create functions or subroutines or microservices in different environments, to me, it just helps me think through it. Otherwise, this gets even longer. Agents can be called, I could call it twice, or they can be called from other agents. So there's a bunch of different ways to create.
You might have many workflows that need to do a person description. You don't want to have to rewrite that one for every single one.
Precisely. Yeah. And then the next step is it goes out, looks at your LinkedIn content, and it says infer to physical items. So that's how it ended up with the whiteboard in the picture, if you remember this little whiteboard here. And then it uses a different prompt. I actually used Flux for this one. It was, I think, before Nano Banana. And here's my prompt. It asks for you to make it artistic and detailed and fantastical. The edge borders are deckled orange style, so it looks like a postcard. And you can see the variable usage here again. So the words, postcard caption, that's what we got from the user before. It said greetings from San Francisco, or greetings from inbound 2025. That's how that ended up there. And then we're using kind of bits of the collected content. So like the first name from their LinkedIn profile and the last name from their LinkedIn profile. And then you'll see some of the prompt tuning I had to do as I worked through this. I had to specify that the person needed to be happy and not overweight, because sometimes it would just take folks who were of a normal sort of body weight and a neutral image and make them
Pulling
look
them out.
like totally not like their likeness. So I had to hard code a bit of this stuff. This returns the image back and then it outputs it, right? So that's everything we saw so far. It's actually a 7-step agent with a subagent call. After this, there's actually no more AI.
Yeah, a
After
lot
this,
more
this is
just get
all,
input, do a thing.
yeah, these just get the user's address. And then this last one calls another subagent that has an API call and a little bit of shaping of the API call to actually go send the postcard via United States Postal Service.
Very cool.
The reason I like this, honestly, is because it's fun, sure, whatever. But to me, it's a tech demo of something that I think will become a lot more commonplace over the next year or two, which is it's creating truly one size fits one marketing content. Like this podcast that we're making here, hopefully will get consumed by lots of people in whatever podcast platform they like, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or whatnot. Okay. But there's a future where content is not mass market in that way, but truly personalized. It's like the same kind of values that we looked at in our test agent, where I said, I don't want to listen to that podcast. I don't want to watch that thing. I want to know what I want to know. Similarly, with images and even direct mail in this case, where this is an image that's getting mailed out, you can see a future where businesses are able to much more closely tailor their mailings, their creative, their homepage design. Like you can take this image and embed it as an image on a homepage or a custom landing page or whatever, and make it all about like. And I think businesses have spent a lot of time and effort thinking about target personas and who do we sell to or who do we not sell to. That's all good. But even better than that is like the actual human that you're trying to get to and making it all about them. I think there's a version of the future, a positive one, where you can cut through content and marketing much faster to find the information you want because it's truly one size fits one as opposed to segment based or ideal persona based. Whereas meanwhile, I'm one human within it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then combo too with, especially with HubSpot, when you're talking about inbound marketing, you're trying to find your people, right, for your niche. And then once you have found those people in your niche, like you said, it just becomes a lot easier to have direct personalized communication with them at a scale that you as that one person would have never been able to do before.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the future is pretty bright for this and these kind of workflow style agents that we see where they have these types of steps. I think they can produce for 2025 at least the right level of deterministic output and not go wildly off the rails for a business use case.
Yeah, and on the other side too, not just tailoring to the people you're reaching out to, but tailoring to your preferences. If you like to work a certain way or like things to be a certain way, or you're manually having to go and do something, now you have so many options more than ever to build something like this just for yourself to help empower you and do things that you wouldn't have been able to do, at least at scale before.
Well, one of the agents I use with great regularity is an agent that takes a video transcript and extracts from it key updates. So I work with the head of product at Agent.AI, who I absolutely love. He's, I think, absolutely brilliant. Every week, he makes a very detailed, like 20-minute video about all of the updates and performance numbers and everything. And I like watching it, but I like more knowing that the key takeaways, the highlight reel as I watch it.
Yeah.
And so I have an agent that takes all those videos and I'll find it later. And it basically just goes through it and tells me the highlights. And it sorts it into things that are for external consumption versus internal consumption, bugs, like it has a bit of a structure I've given it. So
organize it the way that you want to consume that information. That's going to be most helpful.
Yes. Exactly. And that takes me so much less time than listening to a 20-minute video at 1.5x speed and then trying to type up whatever. It's just one of those kind of use cases that I think if you find yourself in that situation, like, of course you should be doing that for yourself too.
Yeah. And now it's more accessible than ever. Even if you're not a technical person, there's a learning curve. A tool like Agent.AI, like you saw, we could build something pretty straightforward in just a few minutes. It's not too difficult now.
Yeah. And building stuff, not everybody that comes to Agent.AI builds. And that's totally fine. Like we are set up for that. It's marketplace first. And so if you want to go like just consume, you absolutely can. And there's all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. There's even things that are like in totally non-techie industries like real estate or something like that. There's one about zoning ordinances, right? Like super specific stuff. And so you have to know what you're looking for, sure. But I think like a lot of the fun is in finding new stuff. One way you can find kind of new stuff and just interact with the the Agent AI universe is through the community. So at community.agent.ai, we have, I think, like arguably the most helpful group of humans talking about AI. It's
Mhm.
very like beginner friendly, novice friendly. We post top agents that are new to the marketplace every week. We do a podcast every week with members of the community, and people are just like talking about stuff. Here's somebody introducing themselves, someone talking about HIPAA, whatnot. So I think this is a terrific place to go learn, explore, find friends that are
Yeah.
doing kind of the same stuff
Find
as you.
fellow nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. This has been awesome, Mike. I will link all of the links we went through today in the description. Is there any sort of last words, thoughts, advice you have for folks?
Yeah, my number one piece of advice here, I think, is advice I probably don't need to give to this audience, but I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and you made it this far in this podcast, to give this advice to somebody else. And that advice is that there's been no better time than today to get into this stuff. And if you aren't starting to do that and you're still using Google and not ChatGPT, or if you're like just using a little bit of ChatGPT but haven't really explored various models, or if you haven't ever really built something out of AI, if you have a friend, a colleague, a family member like that, take their hand and go do something fun together. It doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be earth shattering. Oh, I invented AGI for my small business. Please do not do that. It's intimidating and it's annoying to novices too. Go build something fun. Go build like dinner recipe generator. Go build like an outfit picker or a travel trip planner, bedtime story reader for your kids. Ways to help folks get on board with this massive technology change. If you were in the 90s and you were trying to help someone learn how to like host a website on GeoCities or something like that, like now is the time. If you're listening to this and you're a builder, outstretch your hand and help somebody get more into this stuff. It's an incredible skill set and it's going to really be a differentiator. It already is in the job market of today, much less a year from now. And I think if you're listening to this and you're capable of doing this stuff, then phone a friend to help them out.
Phone a friend. Appreciate you taking the time, Mike, showing us some fun stuff, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future to continue building.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.